sure are going to be late to that.
I just need it like a week. The sooner I like document it, that I read.
6 seconds.
I'm staring at the staring at the time. Oh, there it is. Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. So we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I am asking, this is loud, sorry. I am asking for a motion to do an agenda adjustment to move 8.3, which is authorizing this to submit the major capital applications. We do have Lisa Sawan here from Harriman, and so if there were any questions as you looked at them, she is here. And once the vote is taken, we have paperwork that's going to be filled out and handed to her as she leaves to finalize those. So could I have a motion to move 8.3 ahead of old business?
I'd make that motion, Katie.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
Second. All those approval? All those in support? Okay, thank you. That adjustment will be made.
Can I also make a motion to move 8.1, 8.2, and 8.4 and 5 before the budget? Just, I would guess maybe move the
So new business ahead of,
old business.
okay,
And then to, do you want to do that one first? And then to just move committee reports ahead of the old business as well.
okay. So we have a motion to move new business ahead of old business, and 8.3 will be first in the new business. Okay. Do we have, we have a motion?
Second.
Second, approval for that. Okay. Okay. All right.
Did-
Yes, Doug? Yeah.
You wanted committee reports ahead
Oh.
as well? Just to,
Okay,
Next
so,
one.
do we need a second motion for that?
Yeah.
Okay.
okay.
And then just to move 11, a motion to move 11 ahead of the 7.
Okay,
So it would be after 8, it would be 11, and then 7.
so 8, 11, okay, and then 7. All right. Is there a motion for that? Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All those approving? So it looks like everyone has been voting. Robbie, are you voting against or abstaining?
Against.
Against. So Robbie is, Diane, you have your hand up? Okay, so Robbie's the only one not voting for that, for both motions. Okay. All right. Not used to the one carrying the agenda. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is nominate a chairperson. So could I have nominations, please? Diane?
I would like to nominate Christy.
Okay. Christy? Christy, do you accept the nomination?
No, I do not.
Laura?
I'd like to nominate Nicole Russell.
Nicole Russell. Nicole, do you accept?
I was going to nominate Christy. I accept.
Okay. Any other nominations? Christy?
I nominate Jill.
Nominate Jill. Jill, do you accept?
Yes.
Other nominations?
Can
Okay.
you nominate more than one? I
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I'll nominate Scott.
Okay. Scott, do you accept?
I appreciate it, but I just don't have the time. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, well, I was going to get to, are there any more, and then we're going to second, but do I need to second in the motion? Okay, so the first nomination, Nicole Russell, does somebody have a second? Second? All those in favor of her being considered? Second, no, just a second, then we'll go to the vote. Thank you, Bob, I need you to, no, but it doesn't hurt to have a little signal. Jill's nomination. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second. Bobby? Okay. Cease the nominations. We do have the ballots for that. What you're going to do is write the person and mark the town. Okay, so you're putting the person's name, and then you're marking the town. We're going to collect the ballots, and then we're going to count the weight on the nominations.
So our town?
Yeah, the town you represent, yes.
Thank you.
Because I was going to be
I
like,
was-
Nicole's from
Oh,
Sutton.
sorry.
I
Oh,
was
the town the
hearing it.
person's from.
Oh,
Okay,
it
no.
says right on here, I represent.
Yes.
Okay, we've
Thank
got it.
you.
Yeah, we've got.
I was confused.
I hear we. I probably would have thought the same thing. So, okay.
Oh, this is Vice.
Yes.
Well, this is for Vice.
Okay. Yeah. So, sorry.
I'll keep it. for
Samantha
Vice.
did put these nice ballots together. So here we.
It's gorgeous. Thank you. We can't afford it. We can't afford it.
Salmon. I feel like salmon would be perfect.
Whatever color your surplus is.
Thank you.
That explains why you stepped in at one time.
Well, 8 of us. We used to rotate to make sure that.
Okay, so the results are Nicole had 644, I guess, points, and Jill had 357 points. So Nicole, you have been elected. You get the honor of moving your seat to the front, and then you take over. But I'm here to support you.
Well, thank you. I will be leaning on you.
Okay.
Thank My other binder's at Okay, sorry about that. She's just giving me a little pointers on the next steps. So now we are going to take nominations for vice chair. Do we have any nominations?
I nominate Matt Early.
Do we have a second for that? Thank you.
I'll second that.
Okay. Wait, yeah, more nominations first. Let's see, do,
Yep, does it math want?
oh, thank you, thank you. Do you accept it, Matt?
Sure, why not?
The two newbies together. All right, any other nominations for vice chair? Mara?
Nominate, oh, let's go with this one. Douglas Bumpkus for vice chair.
Bumpus.
Bumpus.
Do we have a second for Doug?
Do you want it, Doug?
Do you want it, Doug?
I'll second it. I don't need to decide.
Okay, so you second it first, and now we'll see if you want it or not.
I think time-wise, I'm kind of with Scott there. I think time, I don't know if I'd be able to do it without that. I decline.
You decline? Okay, thanks, Doug. Diane, you have another nomination?
I nominate Robbie Gayton.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Jill? Do you accept, Robbie?
I respectfully decline.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more?
I nominate Diane.
Okay, so now we have, do we have a second for Diane?
Second.
Second from Jill.
I'll do it.
Diane, do you accept? You accept. Okay, so we have nominations for Matt and Diane for vice chair. Are there any other nominations? Okay, we're going to close the nomination.
Okay,
So we're doing the
have our
budget,
slips of
the
paper.
ballot vote again?
Mhm.
Because I already saw it. Because I took the papers out. Like it hurts.
Thank you. Okay, and the results are 404 for Matt and 597 for Diane. So welcome back to the vice chair position this year, Diane. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to our assignment of school board committees on the agenda. So, and Jill captured some preferences for us, and Katie just handed me the list. Thank you. I was going to ask about that. So we have the three committees. Personnel and Policy, CIA Tech, and Finance and Facilities. Do you want me to go over what people have listed as a preference, or do we want to just?
Probably
Go who-
need to go over it and see
Because not everybody.
where
said
the
Yeah.
no.
voids are.
'Cause
Or
your-
do you want me to go
your
first with?
Policy and Personnel Committee is full. Yep.
Say their names and where. So I have Christy for Policy and Personnel. Myself for Policy and Personnel.
Which will get,
I'm sorry?
you're gonna get pulled off.
Okay, so I was wondering about that, because now Jill, you need to give us one. So then we have Scott for Policy and Personnel. Do you guys want to know who signed up for the other ones before offering up a third one for? Okay, so Diane, I don't have anything.
Yeah, I sent it in.
Oh,
I never got an email from you.
Jill didn't get it from you?
What would-
What do you want to
Yeah,
say now?
Policy and personnel. And curriculum.
Okay. So then that leaves Christy, Scott, and Diane for Policy and Personnel. And then CIA, is that the same as curriculum, Diane? Okay, I
Yes.
thought so. Curriculum, CIA is Diane, we have Matt, and we have a third open spot. And then for finance and facilities is Doug. And then I don't have one for Robbie,
I'd go on finance and facilities.
finance and facilities, okay? Laura?
Thank you. Keep shutting it off. So being on the finance and facilities previously, I think maybe trying something new in CIA.
Is it CAI or CIA?
CAI.
I thought so. So you were
C,
CAI.
what is it?
Yeah.
C what?
CAI.
That's what I had at first, and then I changed it because I was like, oh, and then no, I'm not doing good tonight. I don't know. You want me on A? So I would join the CAI.
AI, okay. Laura, Jill. Finance.
Jill's on finance,
Mhm.
you're on.
So Laura, Diane, and Matt for CAI. Robbie, Doug, and Jill for finance. And Diane, Christy, and Scott for personnel and policy. All good? All right. Excuse me. Now we're going to move on to our next agenda item, approving the minutes of June 26th, 2024 Board of Directors meeting. Do I have a motion?
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Discussion.
No, sorry, thank you. Discussion? Okay, and all in favor? And then any not in favor?
I abstain.
Abstain?
I've read the notes.
Okay, thank you. We will now move on to our public comment section of the agenda. So we ask that you follow the board policy and not indicate any teacher or student names, and state your name and the town you're from. You're welcome to come up.
This one's on. Hi, Robert English from the town of Wales. Congratulate the new chair and vice chair. You've got your task cut out for you.
Thank you.
I encourage you to read the policies that pertain to your position, policy BDB for the chair and vice chair. And all of you should be reading BDD, which is your relationship with the superintendent. I think that some of that has fallen away and hasn't complied with the policy in recent history. And I think if it was to be followed, the board chair, the committee would run better. The community would have a better idea of and feel more positive towards the board and what it's trying to do to improve the educational system for our students. Aside from that, you're going to discuss the budget tonight again. And you're also going to vote, it appears, on a new contract for support staff. Hopefully that, having been on that negotiating team until the very end, I'm assuming the sticking points that we had at the end were satisfactorily taken care of. Otherwise, it wouldn't be coming to the board. So there's a lot of pressure about teachers and pay and stuff, and keep in mind that we have contractual agreements with all of our bargaining units that outline the pay. It's competitive for all of them, and it's not like we can just offer a bonus to attract teachers. To do for school bus drivers, we had to come back to the board and we had to open up the contract and renegotiate that portion of the contract, be able to do that when we did it a year ago. So be cautious when people say, especially at the budget meeting, they want to put more in because we're short on teachers. The money's there, so you don't need to add money because it just sits there and can't be used because you don't have those staff positions to go and spend the money on. So just be cautious through your deliberations. I think personally, when I sat there where you're sitting, I, as you, spoke on behalf of all the residents, the town that I represented. And I had to kind of couch what I said and how I presented myself because I was a representative of my town. On this side of the table, I speak for myself. Right? And speaking for myself, I believe that part of our personnel issues can be connected to the failure of budgets to pass, where staff feel that they may be in jeopardy of losing their position, especially for junior staff because they know they'll be the first to go because of seniority rights. And it's just a bad atmosphere to work in when you don't know what your working conditions are going to be and whether you have a budget to go and support what you need to do. So keep that in mind as you deliberate and decide on any future cuts or to put stuff back in, that we think of the students that we're supposed to educate first, and then think of the taxpayers also. As I said many times, we should provide the best opportunity, best educational opportunity possible within the ability of our communities to pay. So, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to come up?
And good evening. My name is Joe Cormier. I'm from Sabattis. I was here for the special meeting last week, and speaking as a father who has graduated 3 out of small towns, a father who now is deciding to do it again with a 9-year-old, and the husband of a teacher in a different school district. I didn't speak during the meeting last week because I felt it was important for me to kind of collect my thoughts and decide which avenue to go for. I did publicly post something, and the message was transparency. And being that message, I felt it was important for me to sit up and put a name to the face of the person who felt that transparency might help resolve some of the misconceptions or misinformation. When there's a little bit more transparency, and I know you can't get into personnel issues, I understand you can't discuss what's going on in regards to specifics, but when there's no information that's being perceived, sadly it leaves the imagination to create their own scenarios to which why everybody's leaving. Is it administration? Is it the budget? Is it A, B, or C. And when it doesn't seem like direct questions are getting answered from a perspective, I think, again, that puts in a space where people create their own information. And sadly, when people are passionate about their children and wanting their children to be successful and wanting their children to be successful in the community that they're involved in, that emotion takes over because you don't get any more passionate than about your kids. And when there is some transparency and some information coming out, I think it eases the mind a little bit because unknown creates that pocket of disorganization and angst in regards to what's going to happen in a week and a half when my kids show up to school. So I understand both sides of the fence, but I wanted to put a name to the face that actually said something publicly. I wanted to say something publicly at the meeting, but I just couldn't put the words in, and sometimes I feel it's better to leave for an hour or so, collect your data, and then put it out that way. So I want success in my kids. I'm highly invested in the community. I coach, so I've got a ton of kids that I see, a ton of parents that I work with. I came from a small community in Paris. It's a lot of the same stuff. And as long as our kids have the opportunity to thrive and the parents are pushing for their kids to thrive and want their kids to thrive, yes, there's going to be bumps in the road, and yes, there's going to be a lot of head clashing, but it's because everybody wants the same thing. And I think as long as that message is the message that's being pushed forward, then we can deal with the back and forth sometimes because we all want the same goal. So, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else who would like to come up for public comment?
Hi, Tiffany Hurd from Sabattis. Sorry, I'm short. I wasn't really planning to speak. However, I would just echo what he just said about transparency and communicating with the community with authenticity and integrity. And I'm not saying necessarily that that is not what is happening all the time. But what I will say is that this week I attended a parents' meeting for sports where a person in a position at that school presented that he would be in that position for the school year. Whether or not he knew that he would be moved or not, I'm not to say, I haven't heard. But what I would like to say is that if he either didn't know or didn't have the choice to move from a position that seemed to be something he was very passionate about and very happy with, and that was, if that choice was not given to him, then I would strongly reconsider the way that you handle your staff, because that's just going to cause more turnover.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? All right. There's no more. Thank you. We don't have any petitions or communications?
I do.
Okay, so
So-
we have a petition or communication from Jill.
So as outgoing chair, wow, myself, Katie, and Diane all received a letter, and I think Justin is on here too, from the special ed crew, I guess, or the department. I'm really, sorry. From the special ed department, I don't know. So we did receive that, so I will hand that over to you.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to reports, or is
Can I
my-
just ask, will that be available to the board at that point, or?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
All right, now to reports. So 6.1, our superintendent's oral report.
Yeah. Thank you. So I do want to start by giving condolences to Tristan Boyd's family. It's heartbreaking, and it made a sad impact on our school community. I appreciate the high school stepping in and really supporting the family and students and others that were impacted by it. So I just want to put out a heartfelt condolence to the family. The other thing around transparency, really trying to get that communication out and trying to keep everyone up to date on the changes that are going on. I know that Carrie Ricker, Jenny Hudner sent out communication this afternoon around we've hired the classroom teachers who are anxious and excited to get in their classrooms and get things ready. So we're feeling really good about that. We're continuing to big positions, some special ed positions that we're still looking at, and a social work position at the high school and our ed tech positions. But every day as applications come in, we're calling people and setting up interviews. So thank you for everyone's hard work on that. And I know at open houses, everybody's going to be meeting each other and connecting. And so I look forward to those open houses and starting the new school year. You can also see the list of appointments that we've made, the resignations and retirements, and those were from what wasn't at the last regular meeting. It's a culmination, and so just noting those.
Thank you, Katie. So we don't have any other reports, but 6.6 other reports says it doesn't say no report. Okay, I just want to double check before I move on. So now, due to the agenda adjustment, we're going to move on to 8.3.
Sorry, just on Katie's oral report, is there a possibility in the future to get, I know you sent an email out to like parents in the district and things like that, but for the people, for the community members that aren't, is there a way to get like the reassignments or the moves maybe in the future? Because there's like resignations, appointments, but then there's people that have maybe shifted or.
Okay, so yeah, you mean like the Friday update, updating the Friday update?
Yeah,
Okay.
but as throughout the year, like I don't need it in this one, but I just think it might be helpful.
Okay, sure.
To see that we do have people that maybe start in a position and then we have growth opportunity within our district too, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make note of that.
Yeah, thanks.
Just one quick question. For the students that received like a TBD letter for who their teachers were, will they be receiving who their teacher is going to be ahead of time, or find out when they get to school?
It was in the communication tonight.
Okay.
The communication said which teacher they were replacing.
Oh, okay, sorry.
No, that's okay. It just went out. You were in the meeting with consolidation meeting.
All right. Anything else before we move on? Okay, so 8.3, to authorize the superintendent to submit the major capital applications to the Department of Education for Libby Tozier School and Spadus Primary School.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion?
Do you want a couple of questions? So as I was looking at those, these are the applications that we were looking at. I noticed that the building principals and contacts aren't correct because we've made a lot of shifts. So I am assuming that those will be corrected before we sign off.
Yeah, I'm going to have to update that because that happened within the week and
Yes.
she had already shared. So
Okay,
we'll touch base.
thank you.
Robbie?
Yeah.
Oh.
We'll update those.
Anything else? All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
You have to remember.
I think that was unanimous, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Moving on to 8.4 to approve, I'm sorry, 8.1 now. We jumped to 8.1.
Flip that too. Okay. 8.1.
Our new business. To approve the professional staff hired this summer. Do I need to say them all? And if I do, will you help me with their names?
Oh, geez, I'll do my best. Sure.
Nicholas Boucher.
O'Shane.
Beauchene, thank you. 7th grade ELA teacher, Oak Hill Middle School. Do you want me to do them as a group or individually?
Well, you can read them all now.
Yep.
Okay. Angela Daigle, grade 4, Carrie Ricker. Melissa Webster, science, Oak Hill High School. Caitlin Roy, nurse, Sabattis Primary. Charlotte Swanson, special education, Sabattis Primary. Aaron Storks, grade 5, ELA, Oak Hill Middle School. And Richard Clark III, industrial arts, Oak Hill High School. Brooke Howlett, math, Oak Hill High School. Allison Niels, media specialist, Oak Hill High School. Cassandra Wallace, special education teacher, Libby Tozier. Garrett Witten, health, Oak Hill Middle School. Delana Farrell, grade 4, Carrie Ricker. Deirdre Beaupre, grade 4, Carrie Ricker. Megan Perkett, grade 3, Carrie Ricker. And Haley Bernier, special education teacher, Carrie Ricker. And I apologize if I did not say any of those.
You said them all right. Good job.
Oh, thank you.
So moved.
Thanks.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. So I'm not going to ask for. Okay, now we move on to 8.2 to elect Mark Taylor as the Director of Operations, Food Service /Food Service, as recommended by the Superintendent.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Before I move on, did you want me to invite anybody up, or only if there was a discussion? I don't know
I
who's
don't
here.
see them,
Okay,
no.
I didn't want to. Okay.
Yeah, no one's here from.
All those in favor? I think. All right. 8.3 to authorize the 8.4 to approve the district comprehensive emergency management plan as required by the board annually.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion or presentation or information?
Jonathan was just going to do kind of an overview verbally around any changes, so he is prepared to speak to that.
Okay.
There we go. So the emergency plan yearly is reviewed by myself, and any changes necessary will be made and found on the revisions page 3. I can only go into very vague details because it is a confidential plan, but what I can tell you is the majority of the changes from last year to this year are just names and phone numbers, which is going to be a typical revision you'll see every year. The only other thing that did change this year is we added an appendix for a cyber security response that Norma Jean could certainly speak on more if you needed to, but in essence, just an appendix to respond to a cyber security threat or attack that we may have here at the school district. Otherwise, everything other than names and phone numbers has remained the same.
Okay, Robbie?
Yeah, Jonathan, it was our Alice program consulted? It was, right?
Yeah, so in the plan last year, that one was completely overhauled to meet
Okay.
FEMA standards, because that will be a law at some point in
Right.
time. And Alice was included, our practices of Alice were included in that. Obviously, this year, that remains the same. So again, the biggest changes are names, phone numbers, and the integration of cybersecurity.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Christy?
Just wondering around SROs, does that change any parts of our plan? Do we have an SRO? Because I'm not sure.
No,
Yeah, Katie
no.
could talk more on that. It doesn't affect the emergency plan.
So thank you, Christy, because I was going to say that at my report, so thank you for triggering me. So just to make you aware, we had hoped tonight that Sheriff Sampson and Deputy Gagnon from, Gagne from the Androscoggin County Sheriff would be here tonight, and they were not able to, so it will be on our agenda in September at our second meeting. But Chief Baker reached out to me and said that Sabatis would not be able to support an SRO due to being down 2 officer openings, plus another officer will be on family medical leave to start the year. So he was like, they're just with what he's struggling with to cover. So when he notified me, I had already last year kind of put out feelers around options. And so I met with the Androscoggin Sheriff's Department, and they were great, and they're going to do what they can to support us. We have $70,000 in the budget to support. So they're going to talk to you about the contract starting January 1st and going for the second part of the year. Although they are, just as Sabatis, Androscoggin, Kennebec, they're on call to support us at any time with emergencies. Any needs we have that we're welcome to reach out. What the board will have to decide during next year's budget season is to support, if Sabatis is not able to support us, that we would look at Androscoggin, and it's around $130,000 to support a full-time SRO. And he was going to explain what that cost is, what the contract is, and so I just wanted to make you aware of that. But that will be at your second meeting to have him, if you had questions for him and how that works in other districts that they cover.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, I'll take a vote. All those in favor? That brings us to 8.5. To approve that the computation and declaration of votes dated and attached here to be, and it is hereby approved, and further, that the computation and declaration of votes be entered upon the records of Regional School Unit Number 4, the Regional School Unit, and further, that a certified copy of the computation and declaration of votes be sent to each of the municipal clerks with the Regional School Unit.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
So this is just a summary of the votes that took place at the last referendum, and we need you to approve it so that we can have it posted.
Laura?
What was, I was just trying to look through my email again too to find them, but what was the numbers that supported it and did not support it?
I don't have it right here, Laura. Michelle had that in her files, so. It was probably my email. Look for my email with the total. I can pull it up.
It was
Hold
in
up.
July, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, look for my July
it's
10th.
right here.
No, July 28th.
I
Yeah,
have it.
July.
Do you want it?
Litchfield.
You wanna
I
read
don't-
it?
like the total, or you want to do each individual?
You want the total individual, Laura?
Individual, please.
Okay. So Litchfield was 151 yes, 276 no. Sabatis was 118 yes, 162 no. Wales, 68 yes, 76 no. So that brings a total to 337 yes and 514 no.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions or comments, discussion? Okay, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor? There's unanimous again, so I won't call for the rest. Now, due to the agenda adjustment, we are going to move on to 11. Committee reports. So, finance and facilities, Doug, are you ready?
Yep.
No?
So.
Oh, no, is it just consolidation?
Yeah, just
Okay.
The consolidation committee, yeah.
Just
'cause It
consolidation.
was the
Sorry,
subcommittee
yeah.
of the finance and facility
Yeah.
met today. So,
Thank you.
we had our last meeting, I think 4 weeks ago, but it was kind of undecided, it wasn't really finalized. So we had our final meeting today, and there was a unanimous vote that based on the condition of the schools and the costs and whatnot, that it is advised to try to close both schools. As far as like the further details, that it needs to kind of be hashed out. So we're thinking of there potentially being another subcommittee to try to figure out the plan going forward. I did want to add that it's important to say thank you to everybody that participated in that. And your presence and contributions were valued and appreciated. And I think that although the final verdict wasn't the most important thing, I think getting everybody involved was actually the most important part of that subcommittee, and getting people in the schools to actually see it, and having hearing input and having all these different perspectives, I think it's nice, and I would like to see a lot of that going forward. And I appreciate it, and we all appreciate it.
Thank you. And just to clarify that both schools would be Libby Tozier and Sabatis primary.
Yes. Sorry.
That's okay. All right, any discussion, comments? Oh, Bobby?
Yeah, Doug, was there any discussion about the plan after closing the two schools?
There was a lot of discussion about how the plans were after closing the schools. That's kind of why I think that we're probably going to have to push the next facilities and finance committee meeting. We'll be presenting that subcommittee's findings, and I definitely will push to have another committee just for the planning of it, because there are so many ideas, and it's kind of a complex topic that, as far as closing. The big one is that a lot of people did kind of think, we took votes, I got the numbers in general. Most said closing one and then the other in kind of a consecutive domino effect. But then when discussions really started taking place, there were a lot of people that said, well, I'd prefer both just be closed at once, because it comes down to, I'm getting way deep in the weeds here. There's a lot of, the schools are both in need of maintenance and repairs. And there was a lot of discussion about investing in those maintenance repairs to keep them going for the next couple of years. That's a significant investment. So some actually were advocating for both schools to be closed, but then that prompts a whole nother level of discussion as to how to proceed doing that when you don't have a place, we don't necessarily have the capacity to close both schools and fit all of those students yet. So like I said, it's a big discussion, and it is open that those meetings are public, right? Facilities and finance. So if you're interested, Facilities and Finance does meet on Wednesdays the hour before these school board meetings. I highly, highly encourage anybody that wants to be a part of that to actually, you can go to those and hear what's being said about those as we move forward, because it is very complicated.
So the plan is to recommend close two schools to the Finance and Facilities Committee, and then set up another committee to see how we get to close two schools.
Yeah, what would be the proper course of action? Do we do the 1-2 domino kind of effect, or do we try to do both and figure out, somebody threw out using modulars? I think that's what they're like, closing both, maybe doing modulars. There's several options, and it's a lot comparing the finances. Is it worth throwing money into maintaining a school, large sums of money, because both schools are in that need of repair for some major issues? Do we throw these large sums of money at the school just to potentially close it down the road, or are we now invested in this building that the subcommittee unanimously deemed not worth keeping? So there would be it would take a lot to go back through the facts and try to figure out, which course of action was better. Am I explaining that well? I don't know. Okay.
Yeah, but my next question would be, with the paperwork that we passed tonight, how much of that is going into those two schools? Is it the majority?
It's the applications for both schools. And so
Okay.
we'll see where they're ranked. That was a lot of the discussion. You guys can chime in. That was a lot of the discussion, is where will we rank in August? Because we will know that by the end of next year. And so there has to be discussions on their other things ahead. But go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, and Doug has a ton of information that he'll be bringing to that facility as a recommendations over the last 8 months of discussions from that subcommittee. So there'll be more to come, but that initial recommendation is that the schools would be closed.
So what is I don't remember off the top of my head, when is the next facility and finance meeting? Do
We have to set the calendar.
We have to set the
Yeah.
calendar. Okay.
Mhm.
Just again for public, because all that information will be presented, so the public can be there to hear that information as it's presented live in person. It's like a live concert. It's better than tape.
There you go.
All right, thank you.
All right, any other discussion? Thank you. So now we move back to number 9, executive session on our agenda.
No, you're going to old business.
Now I'm going to old business, thank you. Okay, there was
None.
There are no other.
no, it was just
gonna break.
consolidation tonight. All right, so now old business. 7.1, to continue budget discussions in preparation for approving the school budget amount at the August 28th, 2024 special meeting. Do I have a,
So, you want me to have?
Katie, you have a presentation?
Yes, I
Okay.
do. Yeah.
Thank
Okay, so I'm going to take you through, figure you're going to follow me, even though I can't see behind me. But so the first thing is just where are we currently, and then what shifts we've done in the last week or so, and what's the impact on that. So what came out of July 10th, so that the public can hear. At the public meeting, whatever is approved at a public meeting is what we live by until another public meeting sets in different numbers or continues with these numbers or whatever is decided. So it's a public meeting that decides the budget we're living on until we have a approved budget through the referendum process. So we were at 5.6% increase over last year. The impact on the tax is for that. So you can see that we had an increase of $705,152 over for your tax increase for education. So that calculates, what we did is take all the parts for every town, the state contribution, the required local share, the additional local share, the adult education, the school lunch, and we do a total, and then we know what we're going to need for the tax increase. Then you can see what the mill rates, what 1 mill equals. Then you can see by, this is the annual increase for a house of 100,000.
Katie, we're not seeing that slide.
Okay, can you go to, thank you. All right, thank you. That's all right. Thank you, NJ. Sorry. And then, so you can see if it's $200,000 valued home, you would double that. So for every 100,000 you would add. Okay. So we were at $63.04 for Litchfield, $82.97 for Sabattis, and $49.97 for Wales for a $100,000 valued home for the annual cost. So that this is just what's been happening. So we started with a $23,377,580
Next
budget.
slide.
Next slide, sorry. Next slide. Okay.
Okay.
All right. The budget didn't pass. So on June 26th, the board approved reductions of $665,990, and the new budget amount was $22,711,590. Then we went to July 10th, and at the public meeting, we had added back in on the floor $73,529. So we had a new budget amount of $22,785,119, and that did not pass. So, as people have spoken about, there have been changes, and one of the big one was administrative changes, and a lot of this happened due to opportunity, considering feedback around staff support, budget implications, qualifications of our administrative team, and so one of the decision was made to look at the adult education athletic director position. In talking with Jim about this shift, he said to me, I did it for 11 years, and we did speak about what would he need for support. And so he did share needing some support with adult ed. He, obviously that is a passion of his. He has also remained connected to athletics. He and Brian talk a lot about that too, because that's a passion of theirs. And so that was a decision. I'm going to talk about that later on the savings of that. The other thing was the assistant principal position, assuming middle school athletic duties, and so we're still working through that. So as Brian Daniels moves to the assistant principal position, assuming middle school athletic duties, then we really talked through around how to best support staff and administration when trying to do 2 schools. It's a challenge. And so how do we best support those 2 schools? We have put Jenny Hudner as our new principal for Carrie Ricker, and she will be solely responsible for Carrie Ricker. That means all of her attention, her focus, that's where she will be. And she's already jumped right in and connecting with staff and doing the interviews for teachers. And then Libby Tozier, talking about Libby Tozier's needs. So Jan is here, Jan LaValle, and I had a really good conversation about her desire to really step up and help support that school in a teaching principal role. So she will remain in her teacher contract, and she will receive a stipend for her administrator role. She had her big meeting yesterday around with her team leaders and really talking about how to best support them, and knowing that I'm available. We'll be connecting to make sure that she's getting her needs met, the staff's getting their needs, and the students also. So with the changes, and obviously Cherie at Sabatis Primary, Michaela at the middle school. So we're a strong team, which is which really helps. We communicate a lot, we talk a lot, and support each other in our work. So that's what happened there to make sure our positions are filled, people with those qualifications are covering and being there and supporting our staff and students. Next slide. So what does that mean? So one of the options, and Jim knows this, we've discussed this, that if you want a full-time athletic director, the savings is $60,000. I've included it as a savings, but certainly the board could say, no, we want a full-time athletic director, and that is your choice. I just putting out decisions we've discussed as a district. The Carrie Ricker principal and Libby Tozier teaching principal change, so that's reducing the AP position, the assistant principal position. That's a savings of $80,000. So remember, all of our administrative contracts start on July 1. So they have been receiving their salary based on the position they were in July 1. That will be shifting as a date of August 19th when those changes were put in place. And so that's the savings when you take everything into account. Okay. The other thing is reviewing the fund balance. We were at 529,900. Samantha re-looked at where we were, what's projected, and we feel comfortable having a 600,000, especially in anticipation of having to bring our fund balance in line with the new regulations at the end of the year. What does this impact have on the budget if you did the 60,000 and the 80,000, right? So, next slide. Yeah, thank you, Samantha. So it really highly impacts, obviously, Cost Center 4 and our school administration cost center. Overall, it impacts bringing down that increase from 5.6% to 5.12%, which is closer to that 5% I think you all were aiming for. And then it also makes an adjustment for adult education. So if you move forward with the 50-50, that article will be approved at the next meeting to go back out. If you choose to keep the full-time AD, that article won't go back out. The adult ed position will stay at 0.75%. Okay? So that's the impact. So what does that mean to Texas? Next slide. So now, instead of a $700,000 increase for our taxes, it would be $495,052 $495,052.53 impact on taxes. So that's a reduction for Litchfield for $100,000 home value from $63.04 to $45.36. Sabatis from $82.97 to $58.30. And Wales, $49.97 to $32.23. So that's the impact of these changes. So up for discussion on where you would like to be for next Wednesday's meeting.
So regarding the athletic director position, if that's to be back to a full-time position, would that person that was in that position before be returning to that position, or it would be posted as a new position?
It would be posted as a new position.
Because I know that's something, and as we heard tonight too about the sports, like that was something at the budget meeting, and then to cut that, to just turn around and cut that, doesn't feel like we're doing a good job listening either, but. Using. Christy?
Katie, do you know what the final number was for last budget that passed?
You mean last year?
Yes.
Samantha can bring that up, hopefully. It's right on the
Am I
slide. Oh, that's
missing
true. Go back. All right. NJ, you following? We're going to slide 7. So last year we were at 21,577, 585.37.
Okay, so it's still a little bit of an increase. Okay.
Yeah. So we have a 5.12% increase. So we have an increase of 1.1 million. To taxes is 498,000.
Katie, the
Yes.
athletic director wasn't paid at 100% this past year, correct?
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
He was?
Yeah.
Okay. Was the adult
75.
ed?
Was
0.75.
0.75.
0.75,
Mhm.
okay. Could that person potentially, if you post it, reapply for that position?
Yes.
Okay. We just got that a few years ago.
No, and I understand, and it's not, anything, it is at some point, we have to continue to kind of move forward and grow, right? Like as a district and community, and, it's just, you do all this work, I imagine, in these different positions, and you, invest so much time, and then it's all just kind of gone to some degree, and those programs are going to be impacted. And no discredit to just a half-time FTE director. Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, it's not the attention that a full-time person gives. So I think, Yeah, I was not, I was very surprised to see that, when I sat there on a Thursday night and this whole discussion, and then was very surprised. So, and then to sit at a budget meeting, and this is not at all to Katie, like this is to our board here. We've sat there and it was like sports, don't touch our sports, invest more in our sports, like kids need it. And then we cut sports. I'm like,
What sport are we cutting?
We didn't cut
They're
any
not cutting
We didn't
sports.
cut any sports.
you're cutting time that director gets to spend in sports. It's half an FTE. From one full FTE to half an FTE of time. And I bet you that when it was one full-time FTE, I bet you it was a lot more time than 40 hours a week that that person was spending on that. So now you're cutting that to half.
But we could have similar discussions to the science teacher position that we cut, in the fourth grade teacher that we cut. Like, I'm not certain where we need to pass a budget, and we have to, like, we're at the point now that we're going to have to make really difficult cuts. I don't think anybody wants to cut sports. Anybody wants to cut anything, but we can't not have a budget.
Yeah, but we also only had 12%. So we only also had 12% of total voters come out. So when I had spoke at the last meeting and did the statistics of what the registered voters were on the census, right? And so we did only pass with a 40% yes. And so I just don't think that we are doing a good job listening when we sit at those meetings and it's don't cut teachers, don't cut sports. I think we're going to be in the same boat, and we're going to come back and we're not going to pass a budget, and we're going to be talking about morale, and we're going to be talking about those things. So I think that, I think that we need to have the conversation of if you cut this and you send it, I mean, in just over $60,000, it's not.
But we cut $1,100 from field trips. Which would actually probably serve more students than athletics. And I'm a huge huge proponent of athletics. I am not looking to cut them, but like when I'm thinking about what is the role of educating children, and I am an informal out of school time educator and 100% believe in the impact that that has. However, if we don't make cuts, it's the next place is classrooms, and we've made administrative cuts with our building principals. So I just don't know where else it's going to come from. Like, we're at people now, which is awful.
Jill?
So in recent discussions, we had all discussed as a board, like, when you go to cut money or you go to do things, people have to pick up other people's duties if they're not there. So this is kind of one of those things. So we have to shift things, we have to move things, we have to do things to save money. So somebody has to take on other duties. Just like the assistant principal at the middle school never used to do athletics, but they're going to have to take that on now. So he's done, I think Jim did a great job beforehand. I understand his passion is adult ed, but we have to go back to that way. I don't think it's going to hurt our athletics. It never did before.
Scott,
I don't know if you could
disagree.
slide back to that,
Which one do you
the
want?
previous slide where it
6.
talks about the transition with that. But I feel like the maybe it was missed, but the assistant principal is taking on the athletic director role to the middle. It's almost like having 2 athletic directors.
So
If
are
I-
we going to add, at the middle school level, are you going to add 5th grade through 8th grade, all sports, including football, field hockey, track, all of them? Because right now, it's only baseball, softball, and soccer. So you're going to add cheering, you're going to add all of these other sports at the middle school level?
No.
No, because that's a rec
That's
program.
rec.
But why is baseball, like, so you're directing some, but not the rest of them, but they're all middle school sports. They're all middle school kids playing sports.
Fifth grade isn't really considered middle school, is it?
No,
Because they can't play a middle school.
They can't play
No,
middle school
no.
sports.
Well,
They play.
Yeah.
Fifth graders play field. Oh, no,
There-
that
there's-
was rec.
okay.
That was
No, it's
rec,
rec.
sorry.
The intent behind this is to cover the middle school responsibilities that had been part of the responsibilities for the full-time AD. It's not to expand sports at the middle school. It is to maintain what we're doing. So
And as the
there's-
slide says, assistant principal assumes middle school athletic duties.
Correct.
I took that to mean that the assistant principal at the middle school is also the middle school athletic director, which means we essentially have an athletic director that concentrates just on the high school. So I kind of see that personally as a bonus to have two of them.
Mm-hmm.
I guess my question would be, are they happy to do that, take those roles on? Because that especially for Jim, that's a big bite to take. And I guess the other thing was, it probably gets into personal issues, but what the extra pay would be or stipend would be for that additional duty for the middle school principal.
We're working on that. We are working with their collective bargaining unit on that.
So that doesn't even factor into the numbers we see presented here.
It does. Just like anything, you have to plan for
So you've put that in here. You're planning ahead for that additional
Correct.
stipend.
I have put a certain dollar amount there, and then we're going to be talking. Yep, for additional compensation, yes.
Can we know what that amount is?
Yes, when we're finished with the discussion, yes.
But we can't know what the amount that you've planned for is.
Well, because we're in negotiation.
Okay. Oh, I got you.
But
I got
yeah,
you. No.
okay. No, it's all right, it's all right.
But that means it could change. I mean, the number we're looking at could change.
Right.
This
So-
isn't a-
Correct.
Yeah.
Right, they know, we've had preliminary discussions with the association, and that's what this is based on, but we're not there yet.
And I'm just gonna say, because I haven't said any specific names of people, right? And there's nothing saying that somebody didn't do something well before, and I just would like to say that I'm not saying anyone's done anything wrong or bad or anything. I'm just saying I support a full-time athletic director to our sports.
Anyone else?
Go ahead, Christy.
It was just a clarifying question. So the adult ed position was 0.75, athletic director was 100%, and now that one FTE is actually full-time. So they're going from 75% to 100%?
Correct.
Okay.
I just had a question about the teaching principal, what their day would look like, split between teaching and being principal.
Yeah, good question. So Jan teaches pre-K. She has an Ed Tech 3 in her classroom. Her afternoon is smaller. She has 8 students there. So she'll be planning with that Ed Tech 3 to make sure, if she has to step out of her classroom, that teacher can immediately take over. Wednesdays, they do not have students, so she plans on using that time, obviously, to work with her staff, check in with things. She plans to be there early and to check in with staff. We also have the kindergarten ed tech that will be in classrooms that if there was any emergency or so forth, they're coming up with their protocol, like, okay, when this happens, what will be the notification so that Jan can then come out of the classroom. What's a benefit is Jan worked with many of the students in pre-K that are now our kindergartners. So she already has a relationship with many of the students, which is pro, and we'll be monitoring to make sure she is able to come out of the classroom, that the students in pre-K continue to have their education. So, yes. You're welcome.
Diane?
Katie, will the adult ed director still be working with Lisbon as well?
That's a decision that they would have to make.
Okay.
Any other discussion or comments? Robbie?
Yeah, I'd like to say, Katie, thanks for coming up with these scenarios over and over again. And I know the 5.12% might not be where we all want to be, but I think, I think we're doing what we can without harming student environment and staff environment that we can. So I just hope the community can back this number and we can get this behind us.
Thank you. Anyone else? Doug?
On one of the slides, it mentioned the fund balance. We increased the withdrawal from the fund balance. Well, having just come off of the subcommittee that was addressing that we're probably going to have to invest something into some or both, one or both of those schools, I feel like the fund balance is going to be the source for a lot of that investment, since a lot of the maintenance funds are already probably earmarked for other specific projects that aren't including bringing those schools up to par. I guess I'm speaking on behalf of that mindset, is that we might want to think more about having that fund balance be available to address things that are going to be coming up that need to be done at the schools, because that's really our main source of income to do that, right? I mean,
Part of and we've discussed it at Finance and Facilities before, which is to take part of your fund balance and put it into a project fund, so we can revisit that.
All right. Does this, because this budget doesn't have, because some of the issues that were brought up on those Harriman, am I saying that right? Harriman? No, Harrison or Harriman. So Harriman, the Harriman reports, some of both of those schools do have some things, some issues that do need to be addressed immediately. And our current budget doesn't have those addressed things in it, does it?
It has some,
okay.
I think what we can afford is
Yeah.
what Jonathan looked at, like doing the water treatment at Libby Tozier. We're going to need to fund that, which is
Okay.
probably a couple of $1,000s or so. We're still getting quotes on that around helping with the water treatment.
Okay. Okay. Just.
Diane?
I too would like to say thank you, Katie, for bringing this to the board. I think it's really transparent now, and I think this is something we can live with, and I only see us moving in a positive direction.
Thank you, Diane. I had a couple of questions. So for Oak Hill Middle School, we still have the Dean of Students position, even though they're not the Dean of Students anymore? Is it a
No.
different title, or is
They're-
it still?
No, they're the Dean of Students, and they're in a teacher contract.
But the new assistant principal, having a shared responsibility, will still have additional support as well in that space?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Yeah, we made sure to keep that. Yes.
Okay. And then with the fund balance addition or decrease, what does that leave us with?
So Samantha, do you want to go over fund balance?
It's difficult to project at this point because the audit isn't completed, right? So what we do when we look at fund balance is we look at our most recent audited fund balance, which was just over 1.4 million, which has come up at different budget meetings. Then we look at where we landed at the end of the year, which, believe it or not, we're still getting invoices for the previous fiscal year that happens. So where we landed with our expenditures versus our revenue. So I feel comfortable that we'll be putting money back into that fund balance rather than dipping out from it last year. Does that make sense?
It does.
So I feel like we'll be in a good place to pledge that additional 70,100 that was mentioned this evening.
Okay, thank you. Laura?
Sorry, it's probably gonna be a little bit, because I'd rather get it done now than sit again another time through it. So I don't think that we've cut and we've cut and we've cut, and I just have a hard time with it because of all the things that we've heard as well, especially lately, of people not feeling like they're supported and what are you guys doing and all of these shiftings and these things, and then we're cutting more people, right? Like we really are. And so then to have only 12% of voters coming out, we're not talking about how we're going to get more people to come out either. So we'll be back here in a few weeks, I think, talking about the same cuts or different cuts to make until we talk about how to bridge some of that. Like, how do we get more money in for programs, for things, or more people out to vote to support it? Like, how, we're not talking about any of that.
Do you have any idea?
Me? I'm going to take a bus and go pick people up. Okay.
I want to add to
Is that
that.
because I'm not licensed? Or
I want to add to that. I think another
That
thing
might be
that
one
doesn't
thing.
get
Listen,
brought
if
up
the
much
keys are just
is
left in it.
state contributions. That ED 270 could really be revisited. I mean, how we do decide how much the state's going to contribute to the local towns is not very well thought out. I feel like it could do better, especially with how much the state gets. I mean, the roads are all being completely rebuilt, but meanwhile, we're like penny pinching the heck out of the school budget. You go down 295, the whole highway is under construction. They got like almost every bridge is being repaired. They got plenty of money for all of that. I think they could, I'm just throwing this out there for the voters, you can go to the legislature. We're penny pinching what we get, and we get only so much from the government. The state can contribute it's a better fair share. They get tax money too, right, that we pay to them.
Well, isn't the state contribution like 52% dedicated to schools?
Yes.
So
55.
55%? So then 45% covers the rest?
And we get more because
We get more
our
than
district
55.
is.
We get almost 63.
Right.
63. I know that Litchfield, we pay a little bit more, and a lot of it is because of the ED 270, the way that the conversion factor or whatever is for our land values. So because of all the waterfront, which is part of their formula, so it's not just the number value, it's what they're asking for. It's not all, they kind of have this broad, you know what it reminds me of is a body mass index when you go to the doctor and they're like, oh, you're overweight because because you're 5'8", you should really fall within this weight. We all know that thing's weird all over the place. The state's kind of doing the same thing with where you live. I mean, just because we have water does not mean everybody is independently wealthy and can afford the factor.
I live on the water. I know.
Man, I don't know.
I'm aware of how the funding formula works.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying.
I guess I'm just trying to say that it's all of it. It's one of the many pieces. The voter turnout, the funding formula, the lack of support for the budget. I mean, the admin, we complain or hear complaints about admin. Well, if there's only so much money and there's only so many people, you got to kind of lean a little heavier on the few people that are there. And it doesn't always sit well with the people that are there, whether well-intentioned or not. So we're kind of creating a perfect storm with this. I mean, somebody wanted transparency and they said it was an A or B or C. Personally, I think it's all of it. And I think it needs to be addressed as all of it, all of these factors, not just one. I think people are getting a mindset of one factor with the voter turnout.
Christy?
So, to the point of what can we do as a school board to try to educate the public more about this? Katie, what's our limitations? Like, could we do something at all the open houses that are coming up and talk to parents and be like, hey, come to the public budget meeting, and did you know that there's going to be a budget, like, we don't have a school budget, is that within our purview?
Yes.
Or can we do, like, because, And Laura, you and Diane and I
Yeah.
were like, hey, can we do like a stuff a bus at all the open houses and invite people to bring snacks for classrooms and like talk to people there and be like, hey, did you know that we are your local school board members? And like, I think there's a piece that maybe is gray that we're not sure of what we can do to advocate, because technically we're only school board members when we're sitting in this room, but is it within our, not our duty, but our purview to be like, hey, there's all these open houses coming up next week. Can we get the word out that way? Like, for those of us that are available. I don't know.
Okay, so I think your first step is to unanimously support the budget. The board needs to all be supporting the budget. And I think that's where it starts. It has to show that sometimes we have to agree to disagree, or we have to think about big picture and our role in that big picture. And we have not unanimously supported the budget, both in the board or at the public meeting. And that raises questions, I think, around the budget. So I really hope you work hard for next Wednesday to all be able to raise your hand for the budget. I think that would be very powerful message that we've come together. We're supporting this budget. We're supporting the district and our students, our staff, and our families. And that's how I feel about it.
Katie, is there a reason that at the public budget meeting we have to be in front? And we've always had like the board up front, and that is kind of awkward because we're not voting as board members. At that point, we're voting as citizens. So I just wonder if there's a different way.
I mean, what's hard is it's the board's budget. I've had feedback, why is it you always talking when it's not your budget at that meeting? Why isn't the chair the one speaking? And you shouldn't even really, you're there to answer questions, but it's always perceived that it's your budget because you're the one delivering it. When it really isn't the budget anymore, it's the board's budget. And so if you unitedly voted for the budget at the public budget meeting, it shows again you supported the decisions of the board.
I've always wondered about that.
Doug?
With the seating, somebody brought it to my attention. Is there a way that we could get all the seating? I know we're in an auditorium and the seating's easier on the sides, but it's been brought to my attention that sometimes it's awkward as we have administrators of the schools on one side and all the town members on the other side, and it's hard to make decisions when you're just staring at each other across the room. I feel like the budget, it would be nicer to have everybody in front of the board, at least on the floor in the same communal area.
They were the last two times. We changed that so that the administration was on the floor.
On
They
the floor.
were no longer
They were
on
in
the
the front
sides. They
row
were on
right
the
on
front
the
row.
left.
Where they,
On the right, on the right.
I remember seeing them over there, but somebody brought it up just recently, so I figured I would bring it up tonight to address that, to try to keep with that style, I guess, at the very least. 'Cause it
So-
was-
I also just want to remind this discussion that while that public meeting is great to have, like 65 people show up. So 851 voted last time, and the time before that was 800 or maybe 1131 or 831 was no.
The first vote was
Yeah, so there was 1,131 people in June. Last time there was 851. That's to the 65 people that show up to that public budget meeting. I don't know all this conversation is really relevant to any of that, of who raises their paddle or casts their vote or does anything, right? Like really, when you look at those numbers. So are we talking about trying to get more information to the 65, maybe 100 people that show up to the public budget meeting to get them to show up to the meeting? or to the polls where people are voting before they vote and make their decision? Like, where is the place to start with that? Because I'm happy to attend some open houses as well. I think everyone should go vote, whatever you're voting. And then I know last year Robbie had mentioned kind of implementing that in schools to get kids to kind of think to go vote. I don't know we ever heard that kind of happen and started or did anything either, but I feel like we're doing this vicious circle of trying to guess. I don't have a single email from anybody about the budget, so I don't know if anybody in the public that's listening has emailed me, but if you have, I have not gotten it, so I'd be happy to review more than a Facebook rant on that. But, if you send an email, I do look at them, as I have tonight, and not gotten one. I don't know if anyone else has gotten them. Anybody else gotten an email?
No.
About the budget?
No.
So then we're kind of back to kind of guessing, right? And then what we've heard is don't cut teachers, don't cut sports. And kind of my thought, and maybe too late for this budget, but maybe for the following budget, is to kind of think about increasing, because another thing I've heard is that a lot of people don't feel supported. And I think, I think kind of if you polled any place, there's a poll going around, I think if you polled any place, you'd kind of get a similar results. If you polled any work job unanimously, I think you'd probably get very similar kind of responses from staff members at those places. But my kind of thought is trying to increase donations or grants and volunteers and substitutes to help support some of the people that have our kids in their rooms, in their hallways, in their wherever, libraries and all of those places. So maybe increasing the proposal to that, because if we can sell it in a way that we're adding programs, we're adding opportunities for kids in our communities and our community members, then maybe we could get more people in the community to support it. I think going back to it, you raising a paddle or not raising a paddle in front of 65 people, and people do go watch, right? Like you can see that 200 people go watch the YouTube and whatever, but guys, we had close to 1,000 people twice. We just hit 40%. The time before was 38% supported it. They're not necessarily all saying no because of the number. I imagine, I'm guessing too, because I don't have any emails. Either way, I don't have any emails saying we should increase the budget and offer more. I don't have any emails saying not to. So maybe 200 of those 800 want a higher budget because they want more for their kids. We have how many families place their kids out of the district because they have more opportunity and they can afford that, or they choose to, or they need to, or all those things. So like, how can we compete with that? I don't know.
Sorry, Diane.
I do know, I spoke with the president of the PTA, and she says it's really difficult to get volunteers. She has nobody, and so we're asking for more volunteers, but there aren't any even going to the PTA to help out. For teacher appreciation, she was by herself at every school writing with chalk on the ground. So we have a very limited amount of volunteers. They're just not helping out. But I did speak to her about the budget, and I asked if we could possibly have like a poster making contest so we could put posters out to vote, go vote for your school budget, support the budget, and that type of thing. So she was going to reach out to some people to see if they could do that, because we literally could have like a poster making night where people would come and do that. You might even have some kids who want to do that as well.
Yeah,
So-
an open house would be a great opportunity for PTA to recruit as well.
I do think they're there, though. They try.
Yeah.
I mean, the volunteer piece is not special to RSU4. It's a
Right.
nationwide issue.
It's everywhere.
Just like the teacher shortage, just like passing school budgets. I mean, if you open up the Sun Journal and look around us, there are multiple districts we're all kind of in a similar spot. I do think what we have that other districts don't have is we have 3 amazing communities that really want what's best for kids. I think the challenge is common language and common understanding of what it means. I think because we've all attended school in one way or another, we all have this vision that we know how to run them in some ways because we did it and it seemed like it was easy with our teachers. It can't be that tough. And I think we need to trust the experts. And to bring us back to the budget, I will say I'm comfortable with what is presented here. I know it is not ideal. However, I think it is reasonable. And if the public is completely against a 50% athletic director at the high school and the middle school assistant principal assuming middle school athletics, I think we will hear from them at the budget meeting.
Jill?
So I think when we've done the public business meetings before, many have stated they want administration, right? So administration is always the first place where everybody wants to go and cut, but then when you're talking with the teachers who are leaving, they're saying they are lacking the support. So if we're going to sit here and we're going to say to continue to cut administration but support our teachers, they are who support our teachers. So coming out and asking to cut them, but then needing them to support the teachers isn't really kind of working out well either. So there has to be some middle ground, because I think that's where a lot of the public are coming from. They're all saying they want administration cuts. They're not wanting teacher cuts. I've heard that. We all hear that. But every time they come to a public budget meeting, the first thing that they are arguing about is administration cuts. But yet your teachers need admin for support. So I think that's another thing too that you have to be really careful of, like how much do we cut? Where do you cut? So I'm comfortable with what has been presented here. I think this will be suffice. I think we have a great staff. I think things have kind of started to turn around, and we've got to give them the opportunity to build what has been broken, if you want to say that. They have to build it back up. So we have to give them that support.
Thank you, Jill.
And so the total number change, can you go?
You want to go to slide number 7, please? So this is the change. This is going to be the vote, right? And then there'll be a vote for adult ed here. And so this is the overall general, and then this will be with the adult ed. So the impact on taxes is reduced by close to 200,000. Close to 300,000.
And can you go to, because, do you mind going to the
Taxes?
town tax
You want to go to 8?
impact?
The next one, next slide.
So for Litchfield, on a $100,000 home, from $63.04 to $45. And then in Sabatis, from $82.07 to $82.97 to $58.30.
Mm-hmm.
And then Wales from $49.97 to $32.23 a year.
For just the school, because the towns charge for other pieces. I think people forget about that.
Per 100,000, and that's only the increase. That's not the total, that's just the increase.
And so this body of board, do we take a vote?
I was
Are
just
we
going to
still doing
ask if we
discussion?
wanted, well, we are, but do we want to see how close we are? Take
straw
a
vote.
Take a
Straw
straw
vote.
vote and just, if, or, thumbs up or thumbs down on where you are with this proposed, most recent proposed. And 2 are abstaining. I don't know if you need to,
It's not a vote.
You don't
We're
need,
not voting.
it's not- you
It's
don't
not
have
a
to.
vote.
We're
Okay.
just voting.
It's just a straw vote.
We're having further discussion next week. Like, what do we want to accomplish tonight?
That's what my next question was actually going to be. So, like, if you're not okay with it, is what will you be okay with? But Robbie, did you want to say something?
That was my question.
Okay. Like, what would you be okay with it? You know, because if we're gonna send Katie back, we have to give her some ideas of direction or an understanding of what her objective is to reach.
Well, so we're looking at a 0.45% reduction. I don't know, that's not really enough. I don't think it's gonna make enough impact, but Mr. English made a comment at the public budget meeting about the state requirement of headcount versus where we are, and I would like to see the superintendent and staff maybe take a closer look at that to see what our requirement is as opposed to what we are currently employing.
Are you talking about like teacher ratios and that?
No, what the
Funding.
fund,
It was 8279 funding formula.
Right.
What they said we should have for full-time equivalent.
Right, that's what I'm asking him is if it says we only need this many teachers or this many nurses or this many guidance, you would like to know how much reductions would have to be made to meet that.
well, where are we, where are we over in those headcounts? And can there be some possible changes, reductions in those headcounts to reduce the budget?
Just so you know, that's reducing staff and
Increasing classes.
increasing class sizes. It's also, because of the time of year, you have to give notification, so you're,
I understand. I'm not saying to.
You just
I'm not
want the
saying to reduce it.
information.
I'm just saying that
So-
it's something that should be looked at.
yeah, so I can send you the ED 279, and then you can look at the front of it, and you can see the ratios and how many we have, and I will definitely look at it. But I think you could also look at it and see where we have and where we are.
So part of that too is having different schools, right? Like we had principals combined, we had nurses combined before. So as we've expanded that, right, like that's probably why some of those numbers were like, we look like we're over too, right?
Mhm.
Because we have geographically area to cover.
If we were a K-6 school, if everybody was in the same building from pre-K to grade 6, it would look different. But we don't have that.
Those type of changes you can be discussing earlier for next year's budget, right? So
And that might be even some of it is
Yeah.
that
discussing
like,
those options.
this is where we're at this year. If we cut anything, these are where it's going to come from. And then we're going to talk about these items for the following budget to look for where we can maybe shift and move and do and plan. And maybe that's a proposal that,
Because one of the things we talked about was minimum class sizes at the high school. We haven't had an opportunity to talk about that yet because we're still in the same budget cycle. So yeah, I think that's, in my opinion, that's where we go. Like here, this is where we are at. We know that we've already started the school year by next Wednesday, which means contracts started July 1, which means we pay for the contracts, and there is a clause if they were to be let go, it's going to impact this budget.
Doug?
So, where I keep hearing people try to pin that staff are leaving because of administration they're unhappy with and not feeling supported. But we want to talk about potential staff cuts and minimization of the staff as a whole so that we can bring the budget down for next year, and we want the staff to feel supported and confident that their job won't be one of those ones that get decided to be cut. So I guess I'm getting
think
kind of
anyone
confused. It
said
seems
staff
like
cut.
administration gets the bad rap for this with,
Well, my concern is we're looking at a 5% increase this year, what long-term cuts can be made so that we don't have 5% next year, the year after that. In a 3-year period of time, you're at 15% over where you are now. It's just not, we need to live in the real world at some point. You can't do 5% or more every single year.
I guess as a response to that, at least we'll have to take ownership that the school board is responsible for a lot of staff dissatisfaction and leaving. If we're going to make hard decisions like that, I feel like it's our duty to be acknowledging that we may be the ones that are driving good staff out of this district because we're trying to minimize any kind of compounding cost that we may be experiencing. I mean, I'm calling it reality. That's what it is,
Yes,
right?
As am I. I
Yeah.
think you have to have a balance, Doug. You can't just
I
you can't just increase your budget by.
It's fine. I guess I'm trying to acknowledge what goes along with that. It is that whether if you want to go that route, that's fine. But that's what the baggage that you're bringing along with it is that if I worked in this town, that would be a concern. of
I
mine to
understand
hear.
your point, and certainly that's not where I would like to see any cuts. I mean, staff is the most important, but we need to dig deep for the future and find out what long-term cuts, and maybe like, consolidations and closing schools. These are some of the things we can look at. I don't think
That
the
might be in the
community
long
can
run.
support these kind of increases year after year.
Robbie?
So I guess my question to Scott would be, are you talking about going just with essential programs and services and none of the extra part that the community picks up?
I don't want to follow your question.
Well, you said that you wanted to know the numbers of the 279
Mhm.
and the essential programs and services that the state pays for, and you don't want to fund anything up above.
I'm not saying that at all.
Okay,
No.
all right.
I just wanted to know.
Because that essential programs and services only covers a certain percent of staff. It doesn't cover staff that we deem necessary because we want to keep class sizes a little bit lower, because we have might have a librarian or assistant ed tech librarian in each school, or our administrators, we have a dean of students because it helps with behavioral issues. So I think that's where you're coming from.
Well, I'm asking to inspect the gap between what the state is recommending or suggesting.
That
versus
gap is
what-
easy, because the gap is easy, essential programs and services on the DD 279.
Right,
That's it. So anything up and above that is paid for by the communities.
correct.
So you want to lose everything above the communities.
No. No, I'm asking, is there anything within what the community is funding that can be reduced? That's all I'm asking.
I think
Sports.
sports, extra teachers that we pay for because we want lower class sizes, that's what I'm getting to. You can't have it both ways. You can't say, well, we want less money for schools, but we want the same programs and the same amount of teachers. Because when you get the cuts that low, it's staff you're talking about. It's administration you're talking about. It's losing programs that you're talking about.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens. I'm done.
Okay? I mean, fine, but if you don't want to clarify it, how does anybody that has to make that decision know what they need to do?
I think all that was asked for was just information. So
The information is already there.
I have it up right here, so I can send it to Scott.
It was at the budget meeting
It was at the budget meeting. We've talked about it many times. It's
Not
been talked
the
about many
information.
times.
I'm asking, is there anything within what we're
Have you got any
recommending?
ideas? Have you got any
So-
ideas?
Just,
So I'm gonna ask that we maybe table any further
I instructed the
discussion.
superintendent to take a look at it.
The ED 79, we'll take that back, see what we're looking at, how it plays out for our district and our programs and what that all means. We'll take that back.
So both Laura and Matt also didn't vote for
when we did our straw.
Yeah, I was gonna ask again, we still need to provide Katie with some direction on what she needs to do
When is the next meeting?
I was just say, for next Wednesday's meeting, yeah. What would we like her to come back with? Is there a number, a percentage, an additional percentage reduction that we're thinking, or that you're thinking? Katie, Christy?
It's okay.
Sorry.
I'm comfortable with this. However, I do wonder where we have hired new teachers now and we have a better sense of kind of where those salaries are going to fall, if we need to relook at what the actual expenditures are going to be for general instruction, special ed, now that we have folks there. And then if there's any other savings that we will be experiencing because of new contracts and new hires.
We can bring that back.
Is there anything else in the budget? Yeah. Okay, yeah.
He was looking over.
Sorry, did you have something?
I wasn't raising my hand, but I'm being called on, so I'll speak. I'm on the fence. From the feedback that I received from the public, it's really not so much where we're at for a number. It's the investment they're making into the schools and staff and the students, everything involved. And they're unhappy with what they're seeing, what they're hearing, and they're concerned about investing more money into that. So the reason why I abstained my vote for the straw poll is just I need more time to think on it, I guess. I don't know.
Okay, thanks, Matt. I had one question that kind of piggybacks on what Christy was asking, but if there's anything else in the budget for an expenditure that isn't necessarily needed anymore for the fiscal year 24-25. I think an example would be the wheelchair ramp that was pulled out for last year, but was already part of the 23-24 fund. So if there was anything
Right, I know what you're saying.
that we've already taken care of, that we can.
Yeah, I mean, we've done those reductions,
All of them?
but I think you're right. We can go back through,
Oh, okay.
you know, in response to what's happened the last 4 weeks or so. We can look at that, yes.
Okay. Yes, Christy.
Just because I don't want to be here all next week doing this again. So one of the other things that I think has come up in multiple places is support for substitute teachers. So could we revisit that line and make sure it's adequate? And what I mean by adequate is that the costs that, the price that we're paying per day for substitutes will be attractive enough to actually have a substitute pool, so our ed techs do not get pulled out of their assignments, because I think that contributed to a lot of dissatisfaction, and particularly in special ed last year, from what I'm hearing. So if we can address that now, I think that would be beneficial.
Okay. Anything else? What do we want Katie to do? Diane?
I don't know how to say this, but I've been working in this district for a long time, and I want you to know that we have some new people, we have some new blood, and the issues that we're having are not things that have just started. It's things that have started many, many years ago. So you need to look at the people and the changes that we have made to improve our RSU. It was an awesome district. We have some new blood. I think there will be a big change this year. And I think you really need to think about that, because we can't put blame on just now. It's something that has come for about 10 years. So I just want you to, I mean, I worked in the district, I know, because I've been in it.
Okay, so
So you want me to summarize a little bit what I think I heard?
I mean, that's where
This
I'm at.
way.
Like, to me, it's not the staff. It's not the administration. It's the frivolous, ridiculous spending on stuff we don't need. I would really like to see go away. Like, maybe it's small, but why do we have brand new side-by-sides with plows and sanders when we hire somebody to plow the snow? Why did we buy a brand new pickup truck when it's not necessary? This is the kind of stuff that is just not needed. And these are things that could be used to fund student needs, okay, and enrichments. We need, and like to your point, Diane, this is stuff that's been going on for years and years, and it's compiling, and now we're at this point where we're seeing 5% increases, and it's going to continue to happen.
Okay, do you want to give us a summary of what you're hearing?
So what I'm hearing is majority, not consensus, to stay with this reduction. And then we're going to look at with the new hires, leavers versus replacement, see if there's a savings there. We're going to go back through the lines again to see impact on how we're starting. Is there any other reductions we can make and bring them forward? So, and look at substitute pay. So we'll look at the things that have been brought forward, and then we'll work to bring you the number. So it will either be this number or it'll be lower. There'll be more of a reduction.
I know it's kind of late, but is there anything on the revenue side that can be adjusted? Do we still have the pellet boiler and a crate sitting at the high school?
Yes.
Can we sell it?
We've been in the process
Are there
of
buses that can be
doing that.
sold? Are there
No.
brand new trucks that can be sold? Are there side-by-sides
No.
that can be sold? Tractors? No? Nothing? Just asking.
I know, you're asking, it's a good question, we can go back through. Remember that revenue goes into your fund balance, it would not go to offset the taxes. This
Doug?
year.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry,
So,
Doug?
I guess, I mean, what I have a hard time with is I went to the Litchfield, had a town meeting this year where we voted for town things, you know, just like the school board meeting, but on the town issues. Litchfield, like, didn't even bat an eye. We didn't even bat an eye, 'cause I'm in Litchfield, at full-time fire chief, having a revolving fire truck fund where we're putting like $200,000 away a year or something like that. We're not even batting an eye at all these things we voted on. Not once. I'm not blaming them. I guess it brings up an interesting point, is that we seem to think that discontent is always financial, that we always need to keep dropping this budget to appease just the few people, because it seems like the only ones that show up are the grumpy enough ones that don't want to pay it. Where I guess I don't subscribe to this. I was at that town meeting, and the population of Litchfield that was at that town meeting did not bat an eye at all of these things that they've deemed were necessary for the quality of life of people going on. I don't think the general Litchfield person at that meeting wants this budget to be lower. I just think they want the quality of what's happening to be better, which I think we all agree about. But I think that we just go with the easy route of dropping the budget because, people said no. So it must mean, even though we've gotten 0 emails, it must mean they want less money there. Even though we've gone, and I've gone to a couple of these, they've actually bumped up on certain warrants for how much they want to contribute during these. And we walk away with the budget being more than what we even projected. So I think that the strategy that we're doing, I think that we need to do a little bit of everybody's ideas. I think Scott has some frugal ideas that are worth implementing, although not everything. I don't know, but I think that everybody if we need to think more outside of just dropping the budget down. I'll vote for this one just because I don't want it to go lower. But I don't think it needs to be crazy, but I just don't think the answer is always dropping it down every meeting. Every time we don't get it passed, I think that voter turnout and...
I think something that could be helpful the following year, Samantha had actually suggested like a budget committee But I also think it would be helpful to put a poll out to people in the district and say, what are some things you need? So maybe it is they need more ed techs. Maybe it is they need I read all of those responses, but maybe it is that they need a lunchroom monitor. Maybe maybe they need more supplies. Maybe they need more printers. I don't live in their shoes every single day. I do have a full-time employment and lots of other things, but so I kind of get it, right? Like I kind of get people need things, and my kids are in the district, and I have a huge vested interest in it. At the same time, we all have to work within a budget, right? But I think if you had these survey results that I think everyone's aware of at this table, I think if you do a similar thing to that to staff, what do you need? We're having a budget discussion. It's coming up in January, just a few months, sooner than we think it is. And then you say to the community, we did these results, and this is what people in the district need to teach your kids, your grandkids, your neighbors' kids, and build up our community. This is what people are saying that they need. These are the numbers to support those needs. You can't really argue with that. But when you do have superintendent says this, and then you do have people saying other things, that their classrooms are being cut, their supplies are cut, you have staff that are saying that they got moved and didn't know they were, you have all kinds of situations, right? So when all that chatter happens, but if you have it black and white that we did a survey and this is what the people on the ground say that they need, and of course not everyone's going to get everything, I think that could make a difference for the following budget.
Well, and to piggyback on that, if people are being moved, I think going forward, what would help maybe address these is when an administrative decision's made to move a staff member, and the staff member isn't, maybe is against that certain decision, they could always come to us and be like, here's what I would need to not have to move this staff member. Because most of the time the staff members are moved because of financial, you know? Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't mean come to me to ask for permission. I mean, come to us as a board to be like, if I had 30,000 more in the budget, I wouldn't have to try to adjust this staff member. You know, I don't know, going forward. To be more involved in to try to how to prevent these uncomfortable situations because of financial ends trying to be met is, I guess, the aspect I'm trying to address.
I think another great example is like, I know we have new special ed, and again, no discredit to anybody in the special ed before, but I think some of the other things is it takes so long. Like, some processes take a long time, and I think a lot of times when we deal with anything state, like, we know that can expedite, like, to extenuate the circumstances, right? So I think another thing could be that we have a new special ed director, we're working on a few processes, and in the following budget, we're gonna add things to help with some of those other things. Like, with some of those processes and some of those constant kind of things, and again, we can't make everyone happy either, right? Like, but I agree with you, taking away is not beneficial.
I think it's kind of our quick low-hanging fruit with the problem. There's a lot of other things that are harder for us as a board to try to deal with to get a budget to pass. And the low-hanging fruit is just drop it as low as we can,
I think
as painfully as possible.
$10 or $15 off from $100,000 assessment is either, one, not gonna be enough, but two, I don't think we've really even talked about how to get more people out to vote to support a budget or to.
So do you think that we should be focusing on how to get more out, or focusing on giving Katie direction on lowering it? Or just, I mean, what do we think we want her to come back with? And we're at 8:30, so I just want to make sure that we have time for the rest of our agenda items and still continue this very important discussion as well.
Yeah.
So what are you thinking, though? And,
Me?
All of us.
you don't have to
Okay,
answer,
thank
because
you.
Christy did raise her hand, so I can call on Christy.
Well, I think what we need to be thinking about is this number. Is this going to give the students in RSU4 the education that they deserve? And is this going to support our teachers? Is this going to support their professional development? Because, I mean, the survey, you mentioned it. I went through it and put it through ChatGPT because I didn't have a lot of time to do a actual statistical analysis. I sent that to Katie, and it has some pretty interesting themes. One, and some very specific things for us as school board members that I actually would like to address at a future board meeting if we could do that. But I think that's the question that we need to be looking at. I think the bottom line, yes, it's important. The taxes, yes, it's important. But we have to remember what our charge is. And our charge as the school board is to have a budget that will support all of the learners in our district, our teachers, our administrators, and our CEO, which is Katie. She's running a pretty significant business if you want to look at it that way. And honestly, I still think that this number is too low. I think there's so much more that we should be doing. But I'm okay with settling with this. I do think for the future, we need to really show how these cuts and or increases are directly impacting students. We need to be able to say like, oh, we're actually going to invest $20,000 in PD and X, Y, and Z are going to be the outcomes of that. And here's the evidence that backs it up. I think that's what the public's looking for, and I think that's where we haven't really delivered yet. Again, we need to pass this budget so we can move to the next one because we're already there. And I think that's the kind of forward thinking that we need to be doing as a school board.
When's the next vote? When's the next public vote?
September 11th.
Yeah.
Is that the public meeting or is that like the town vote?
That's the public vote, and then the referendum is
22nd.
The 22nd.
So would we be able to, and it won't hit all of the community, right? But we could put it on the website and the Facebook page, but would we be able to just do a poll on like, do you support the budget? Is it too low? Is it too high? Do you want to see increase? Do you want to see decrease? Like, could we do that to get where it's at now? Or do you just let it go through and see what
Could we do that at
happens?
open house informally?
You can add a non-binding question.
But you're only polling a certain group of people. I mean, you really, in my opinion, part of this problem is not getting the word out to the folks in the community that don't have kids in school. And then we concentrate so much of notifying the parent. It's easy, right? I mean, you have an interaction with them, but the people outside that we really need to get to these meetings that aren't.
Yeah,
We
but
need
we
to contact them and get them involved
We have
somehow.
1,300 kids enrolled, and we have 800 or 1,000 total voters come out, and
So
like,
what
and we-
percentage of that is parents, and what percentage of that is people
Because
that
it should be
are-
at least double, right? Like probably 2, 3.
well, not if you have more than one
grand-
child. So.
Yeah.
Like,
True.
but so we're gonna ask Katie to come back next week with looking at savings from the new hires where their contracts have been solidified. Reduction for items that are no longer needed or that have already been satisfied.
I'd at least just like a poll too. Like if we could just post do you support this? Is it too high? Is it too low? Or you think it's great? Can we do that? Like a Google check.
I think to Scott's point too, though, there's a lot of senior citizens in Litchfield. I know for Litchfield, I don't know. I'm sure every
I
town.
don't think
but seniors, not everybody's online. You know, like that's a whole nother demographic that we're just. Is there a potential way to somehow even have volunteers go from like house to house with a paper form that has like 10 questions on it or something? I know that seems crazy, but crazy is not the
It
right
might
word.
be a good
That
thing to
seems a
mail.
lot,
You can't even get
but
volunteers.
it's like that
for
would
the
be
next budget.
We
Like,
do
you a
we
mailing?
do
That's
a
what we would
mailing,
need,
and
you know?
and just so you know, there's some cost with the mailing.
Oh yeah,
So
I know. It's just that's
frankly,
what we
we'll
would
probably
need
have to come
really
back and raise our postage.
get some-
But at the same, I mean, we send something out to every home. We have I mean, it's the positivity. It's the support.
Right.
everywhere, the social media, the getting out. We send everything to the towns. They push their stuff out to their folks, trying to keep them updated on what's going on. There, you definitely can, at the referendum vote, you can have a non-binding question if you would like.
Oh, I get what you're saying. It's like
You can
at
put
the
it
poll,
on,
when
at
they
the
go to
poll, they
vote.
could vote and say, just right, too low, too high.
So we have a sense of where they're landing
Yeah.
and why they're
You
voting.
can
Yeah,
do
we
that.
can do
away.
that? Yeah, we've done that in the
Yeah,
past.
you can do
but
a
it's
non.
not.
Bob's, would you like to comment?
I think those who vote no have the opportunity to answer the question which laid out in statute is, do you believe the budget is too low or too high?
There you go.
It's not like already or nothing else, but it's actually laid out the wording.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be answered by only those who vote against the budget, and those are the only ones you look at, but those who voted obviously think it's okay. But the question is, do you believe the budget is too low or too high?
They could still vote yes, but wish it was higher.
That's
Right.
right, but.
Yeah, I didn't think it was limited, but,
Convince the no vote.
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay, so I think
We'll be back
we'll
Wednesday.
be back next Wednesday.
We'll be back
You
next
have those
Wednesday.
4 things.
We'll have everything ready, and you and I will go over it.
will.
And, yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. Appreciate your discussion, and remember to send anything else your way if you come across any ideas or thoughts to help Katie over the next week. Okay. Now we can move on to 9, executive session, 9.1. To enter into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA, Section 405, 6D, Regional Schools Unit.
United.
There's a typo. It
No,
says-
it's United.
It is United?
Yeah.
I thought it was too.
Oh.
It is United.
It is United?
That's the union's name.
Okay. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Regional Schools United for Education Association /MEA/NEA dash support staff.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
8:41.
We will now enter.
All those in favor?
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
okay, yes.
Sorry.
Thank you, Jill.
And can you let them know, Nicole, that there'll be action when we come out? Because we might,
We'll be voting.
Yep, once we return from executive session, we will move on to the other business to action the executive session topic. Thank you.
hold the button.
Oh, I think I figured it out. I got it. Crisis averted. Thank you. Okay, so now we will move on to agenda item 10, other business, to 10.1, to approve the Regional Schools United for Education Association /MEA/NEA dash support staff collective bargaining agreement.
So move.
Second.
All right, thank you. Any discussion? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. So I won't call for any more. We're going to skip 11 because we already moved that up the agenda. Next is 12, board member comments. Yes, Diane.
I'd like to say thank you to Jill for being our chair last year. I'd also like to say thank you to Katie for doing such a great job trying to get all these positions filled before the beginning of the school year. I spent a lot of time at interviews in the last 4 weeks. It was like daily. I'm hopeful and that we're going to have an amazing school year and that our new teachers will become part of our RSU for a long time.
Thanks, Diane. Anyone else? Robbie?
Yeah, I'd like to thank Jill too for the work that she puts in. I know what it takes to be the board chair, and I know you're always the one that gets arrows slung at you, so thanks. I think it was a well done job. As far as we had the discussion about voter turnout at our budget meetings and the referendum vote, you know, I've been thinking a lot about that, and maybe we need to set up a subcommittee that would physically go out into the community as a board and support the budget or listen to the taxpayers in the communities that we represent. So maybe 1 or 2 members from each town could set up a date and allow community members to come in and ask questions about the budget and how we got where we are and why where we are. It might go a long way to alleviate some of the back and forth on social media. So I'm just thinking, trying to brainstorm to get more people out. And I know, you know, open house is a great example, but it doesn't hit the people. I've had some discussions before with community members, and when you talk to them and you tell them how we got to where we are and the process that we went through, you know, some people you're not going to convince. They just don't want to pay more taxes, and I get it. They just don't have it or aren't willing to pay it. But I think there's enough community members out there just to come out and raise the numbers. Whether you vote for it or not, I would like to see, you know, I just find it 65 people at a budget meeting. The largest budget meeting that I ever went to, we were cutting wrestling, right, Bob? And there was 124 people in that room, and it was like a really frank discussion about how we got to where we were. And the other one was when we wanted to change the bus drivers and privatize it. So I hate the idea that controversy brings people out, but I think the perception is you can always sit back and wait and vote no if you want to vote no, if you don't know the process. But I think setting up a subcommittee for the communities to be able to talk to and listen to might be a step forward to get us out, you know, so we can talk to people. And I think you are right. Board support of the budget goes a long way in the community and the staff, because the staff is always looking on what the board does. So that's my 2 cents.
Can I add on top of that? I'm not so sure it's just how we get to where we got, but people are looking for a return on investment. So okay, there's a 5% increase. What is my 5% increase paying for? Are we going to see a 5% increase in testing scores? Are we going to see 5% increase somewhere? You know what I mean? Like what benefit are the children in our community getting for my additional funding? And that would build support. Is what am I getting for this? You know, what are the kids getting for this? Show me something tangible that makes me want to support that financially. I think that would go a long way with people. It's not so much like how we got to this, but what is it actually doing? What is all this money going towards? I mean, 20 some odd million, $22 million, $23 million, it's a lot of money. Where is it going? You know, show people what it costs to actually run the district and what they're getting for their money.
Anyone else? I wanted to say thank you to whoever voted for me. Don't really know what I'm doing, but I think I'll figure it out. I hope. I'll make sure I figure it out. I'm actually looking forward to it. Looking forward to working more closely with you, Katie. And the the only other thing I could think of is, grandparents go to football games, right? That's where you get that a little additional. If they live in the communities, what can we do there? We have posters there or handouts there or things like that. And I know all that costs money too, right? So you have to be cognizant of what you're also trying to do to what you're trying to achieve. And it's not an easy juggling act. So thank you, Jill, for what you've done here. I only know very few board chair sessions, but that I visited prior to you. So I basically learning it from watching you the past year. So thank you, and for all your hard work and what you've done. And thank you, everybody. And I too feel that we can only go up from here. Right? Let's think positive and see if that can spread. All right, anybody else? All right, officially 9 o'clock, and I call the meeting adjourned unless there's any objection. Thank you.
Yeah. I passed it too. Yay, I got to lots of cookies.